What's going on, guys? Welcome to a special episode of Eastern Current. Michael's here with me. We've got a special guest. We're not going to be talking about fishing tactics or anything like that today. We're going to be talking about a much more important issue that we're dealing with here in North Carolina, and that is just honestly, kind of the overall struggle of the resource of our fish being actually in the water for us to go out there and catch them. North Carolina is definitely far behind other states as far as looking at our resources the way they need to be looked at, and we're mismanaging them. And the numbers of flounder, trout, and redfish are just not where they should be. And the recreational angler, I see it. We wouldn't really probably need this podcast if our fish numbers were where they should be. Anybody would be able to go out there and catch some redfish, trout, and flounder pretty easily. It's really not rocket science when you break it down. But we have made it that here in North Carolina. So excited about this podcast. Some people, there's lots of different opinions out there, but I stand for the resource and for us having a sustainable fishery here in North Carolina. And I feel like most of our listeners can't argue with that. So with that being said, I'm excited to bring on a good friend and guest, David Sneed of CCA. What's going on, David?
Hey, guys.
How are you doing?
I'm good, man. A little bit tired. It's been a busy few days, and we've been hard at it, but excited. So appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So do us a favor and just kind of share your backstory, your love for maybe fishing, and how it's brought you to this job that you've taken, and kind of that whole background for everybody.
Yeah, sure. So I was hired as the executive director for CCA North Carolina back in spring of 2014. Before that, I'd spent most of my professional career in the construction industry. So that was about the time when I had gone through some market downturns in real estate and home building and things like that, and had really gotten burned out on the business side of the world. And this opportunity kind of presented itself out of the blue. I'd been a member of CCA for years and just happened to be talking to some guys about, what was going on at CCA. And I think at the time they were looking for a new executive director. And the guy said, well, you ought to apply for that job. And I said, well, I'd certainly be interested in talking about it, and ended up being a fit, and gave me an opportunity to, as I tell people, I spent probably, the better part of my first 50 years of my life trying to make a living. And I kind of look at the backside of my next 50 years of trying to make a difference, and that's what I want to do for North Carolina and do for the resource. Like I said, I love to fish. I love to be out on the water. I love the outdoors. Love to hunt. So it's a good fit for me, and it's a passion for the resource. So for me, it's about trying to change some of the things that have not gone the way they should in North Carolina on fisheries management, and really try to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's awesome, and it's an awesome. Well, what I'm getting at is, in a lot of states, your position, you'd almost be a celebrity and a hero, and here, for a lot of us, you are, but you take a lot of heat for a lot of us that aren't willing to stick our neck out there and really fight for the resource. If you were in Texas, people would be parading you around on, in parades and whatnot. But in North Carolina, we're just a little behind the times. I think your time's coming for sure. To me, you're a hero for sure. But I definitely appreciate you, doing what you do and fighting for the resource, because frankly, I'm kind of tired of, and Mike's probably the same way, the conversations that come up at the boat ramp with all our friends every night complaining about the resource and the fishing and all this stuff, and no one's doing anything. People love to complain and point fingers, but it takes a select few that actually step up and do something. So we want to thank you for that. It's cool. So,
well, I appreciate that. You're exactly right. It's, I kind of look at Texas and Louisiana and Florida. They're the model for, where we need to be. And they fought all those battles that, years ago that we're still fighting. The things like, game fish protection for important, sport fish like red drum and speckled trout, getting gill nets out of the inshore waters, getting trawlers off of our nursery areas. They've done all those things, and we can look at their fisheries and go, they're world class.
Yeah.
People people love to take trips to Texas and Louisiana and Florida to go fishing, and there's a reason for that.
Definitely.
And it's really hurting. I don't have to tell you, being in the industry, it's, we could be so much more than what we are, and it's. But to your point, I mean, CCA has been, the kind of the target. We've been out there fighting this battle for 30 years now in North Carolina, and we've always been the target. And we're always willing to do that. We're going to stand up for what we think is right. We're going to stand up for the resource, put the resource up here, and then recreational fishing is behind that. If we take care of the fish, fishing's going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
But it makes us an easy target, but like I said, somebody's got to do it, and we know there's a lot of people out there that want to see change, and we just want to give them the encouragement that they need to get involved and get on board.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's kind of step into maybe take us through what you kind of see the issues are that we're dealing with here in North Carolina, and especially the issues that pertain to maybe the lawsuit that is taking place, and kind of share that and go through that a little bit.
Yeah. So we're very excited about the fact we did file a lawsuit against the state of North Carolina yesterday, late afternoon. It's something we've been working on since September of last year. So we've put a lot of time and effort into putting together the actual complaint, the document that we filed with the court yesterday. It's a 113-page document that outlines 30 years of struggles in our fisheries management, and it's we spent a lot of time making sure that we were factual. We've got data to back up what we're saying, and the interesting thing is a lot of our data and a lot of our information comes from the Division of Marine Fisheries. So we're using their own data to paint a picture of what's going on. And the concept behind the lawsuit itself is pretty simple, really. When you think about it, it's just something we never really came up with as a legal avenue for getting some change, but it's based on the public trust doctrine, and basically that's comes from English common law, so it's hundreds of years old. It's the basis for which our Constitution in North Carolina was established. So the concept of the public trust doctrine predates even the state government in North Carolina. And what it says is that the wildlife resources, the water, the navigable waters of the state, they all belong to the people of North Carolina. And that's everybody in North Carolina.
Yeah.
They don't belong to anybody that lives on the coast any more than somebody that lives in the mountains. It certainly doesn't belong to recreational fishermen or commercial fishermen any more than it belongs to the general public.
Right.
And to take that concept one step further, the state is charged as the fiduciary for those resources. So basically the state just holds those assets, if you will, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to manage them for the benefit of the people that own them, for the people of North Carolina. And their responsibility goes beyond that, and this is enshrined in our state statutes and in our North Carolina Constitution, that they have to protect those assets, those resources that we own, against damage and destruction. So it's kind of like if you think about if you've got a 401k plan or a retirement account or investment account, you put that money into a trust account and you have a fiduciary. Your investment advisor is a fiduciary that has a responsibility to look after those assets for you. And it's the same kind of concept. What we think we've done a really good job of, and we think we can present a case that the state has failed miserably in their responsibility to manage those assets, those trust resources for us and for our future generations. Just like your retirement account or your investment accounts, you're hoping that you're going to build something there that you can pass on to your children. I mean, I know you've got a young child now, and you're probably already thinking about, how am I going to help, my family have a brighter future and be prepared. And if you had a fiduciary that was not managing those assets, and then all of a sudden you've got nothing left to leave your children, it's the same thing we're running into on our coastal marine resources.
Yeah.
And we can paint a picture of, you can look at declining fish stocks, overall, the fish stocks in North Carolina have declined since 1997, when the Fisheries Reform Act was first passed into law. We've seen species like spot, croaker, and weakfish, decimated. We're at anywhere from 84% on spot and croaker down to the commercial harvest on weakfish on gray trout is 98% less than what it was in 1987.
Wow.
That's inexcusable. It's undefendable.
Yeah.
And so our lawsuit's based on, those concepts. The state has a duty to manage these resources. We really look at it in three categories of, the number one is, the continued allowance of the use of destructive gear in North Carolina that other states have already either severely restricted or banned outright. We were talking about Texas and Louisiana and Florida. Getting rid of gill nets in inshore waters, getting rid of otter trawls in inshore waters. The biggest damage that we see in our fishery comes from the wasted bycatch.
It's huge.
Gill nets. Anybody that's ever come across an unattended gill net at low tide, we've all seen the pictures of the fish that are left in there just dead and rotting. The state is known for years that we're wasting. It's taken a huge impact on non-targeted species. So you got a flounder net in the water, and all of a sudden, it's having a huge impact on red drum and striped bass. And the striped bass is front and center right now. That's a huge topic in the Roanoke, Albemarle, and central regions, and even down in the Cape Fear region.
Yeah.
So, we've got the gill nets, we've got the shrimp trawlers that we still allow, and we've got documents from the division's own numbers that are showing that, we're killing hundreds of millions of juvenile fish in shrimp trawls every year. And the top three species that are killed, and so then in the DMF studies have shown it's spot croaker and weakfish. And we just talked about the declines in those fish.
Yeah.
There's got to be a correlation there. But the state refuses to do anything about it.
Right.
Instead they want to talk about recreational discard mortality. But we may be, let's say it's even 10% of released fish are being killed in the recreational industry. But that does not even compare to the hundreds of millions of juvenile fish are being killed every year in shrimp trawls. Beyond that, we're going to highlight the overfishing. The state has we have state statutes that say all of our fisheries management plans have to have a plan for ending overfishing within 2 years and fishery within 10. Well, we can look at southern flounder as the poster child for mismanagement in that area. Yeah. We've known since at least 1989 that southern flounder has been overfished, but yet the state has lacked the political will to do what was needed to save that fishery until it got to be too late. And then we finally got to 2019, and what do we get faced with? Basically a closure. We're having a moratorium. We're 45-day season in 2019 and 2020 for recreational harvest. So those are the issues that we're going to look at. And the third one is the fact that the state has not dealt with what we call latent commercial fishing licenses. Again, according to their own statistics, 60% of commercial fishing license holders don't report any landings on an annual basis. Nope. So so we don't know, are they catching fish on a commercial limit and just not reporting it? Are they selling it off the books? But obviously the result is our fisheries management plans, our stock assessments could be, hugely underestimated, and our stocks could be in way worse shape than they really are. Yeah. So it's all about, the lawsuit. Like I said, we've tried to educate the public over the years. We've tried to work with legislators and the governor's office to educate them on these issues. But the problem's always been the political pushback. a lot of what you're going to hear out of this lawsuit is it talks about regulatory capture. You know, when the first division of marine fisheries was created, it was actually called the Division of Commercial Fishing, and it was actually designed, you know, all those years ago before there was any wide-scale commercial fishing or any wide-scale recreational fishing. It was designed to kind of build an industry on the coast where we had, you know, some impoverished areas and try to create an economic engine for these coastal areas. Well, as time went by and you started to get sport fishing involved, they changed the name to Division of Marine Fisheries, but they've always held that sort of mindset. They're first and foremost, they're there to keep commercial fishermen fishing. And we've never been able to break that political bond there and get our legislators to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
We all know what needs to be done. I mean, we all know where the problems are. We all know what is causing a lot of these declines. But the pressure's always been there. Instead of doing what needs to be done, the emphasis has always been on what can we do to keep commercial fishermen fishing.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with, you know, the sea turtle ITP is a perfect example of that. And we knew that sea turtles were being killed in gill nets. So instead of shutting down the gill net fishery, the state went and applied for an incidental take permit that allowed commercial fishermen to keep fishing gill nets. So that's the poster child for regulatory capture.
Yeah. It's just, it's a frustrating circle that just keeps continuing and continuing and continuing. So tell me this, what have other states done? And sorry, Mike, you probably have questions too. I keep interrupting. But
no, you're good. We'll come back to that.
Okay. What have other states done that have you know helped them push through these same issues and get through to the other side? Like, what have we not done that they have? Is it the way their system's set up? Is it, you know, I don't know. Tell us.
Yeah. In most states, change comes legislatively. It's going to have to be in the form of laws that are rewritten by the legislature.
Okay.
The only real example of some other option that I can point to is the gill net ban in Florida, and that was done by what was called a citizen referendum. And in North Carolina, we don't have that option. Now, the citizens in North Carolina can ask for a referendum to vote on whether we take gill nets out of the water, but it's got to go to the legislature to be approved. Yep. So you still have to go through the legislature to get it put on the ballot. In Florida, the law was if they got enough people that supported the referendum, it was put on the ballot, and they got the gill net ban put on the ballot, and it passed, I think, with over 70% of the population. Now, other states had to go through the legislature to get laws changed, and we still feel like that's what's going to happen in North Carolina. But what we need the courts to do is provide the push to the legislators to do what needs to be done.
Gotcha.
At this point, again, the political will is not there. There's too much political pressure, and it's the crazy thing about it is you're talking about such a small percentage of the population of North Carolina controlling fisheries politics. I mean, it's insane when you talk about there's 10, almost 11 million people in North Carolina that own these resources, and you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,500 commercial fishing licenses, and I just mentioned that 60% of those don't even report any landings on an annual basis. So you've got, 2,500, 3,000 people that actually fish on a regular basis and report landings.
Wow.
And that's who's going to control, our political process and what needs to be done for our resource. So it's going to have to come through the legislature. We've made attempts there. We've worked with the legislature in the past to try to introduce reform bills. And the problem is we got pushback from the executive branch. The Secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality and his department that controls DMF. I mean, they've actually fought us on some changes that we've tried to instigate, and so it's kind of frustrating, and that's why we need the courts to be able to side with us and agree. And again, we think we can build a pretty good case that there's a lot of mismanagement going on. We need to do something different if we're going to save these fish stocks.
I mean, there's no possible way to argue anything against what you just said, especially with the fact that it was based off of their own numbers. You know, that's the kicker for the whole thing, is it's like there's no arguing with it. It's just simple fact. And y'all are just going off their numbers, which sound like they're probably incorrect in our favor. So, it's pretty silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me this: as a citizen of the United States, or a citizen of United States and North Carolina, what can we do to make a difference? How can we help with this cause? How can we help overall? Like, what can we do to help change things here in North Carolina?
Well, the main thing that people need to do is be educated on the issues. You need to be able to talk intelligently about what's going on, and we want to get away from the rhetoric. I mean, every time we've tried to do something like this, anytime we've tried to get any sort of progressive change, the response from the commercial industry is always, well, we're just trying to feed the masses. If you do what you want to do, you're going to put us out of business, and and people of North Carolina aren't going to be able to get seafood. So we got to get past that sort of rhetoric. And I should point out, from the very beginning, this lawsuit is not aimed at the commercial fishing industry. This is on the state of North Carolina. Commercial fishermen, by and large, are doing what the state allows them to do. There's always bad apples that break laws on both sides, but for the most part, commercial fishermen are just doing what the state allows them to do. That's where the change needs to come from. Secondly, we are at a point where our stocks are so depleted that the commercial industry is struggling as well because of what they're having to work with. So if we can get the fish stocks back up, it's going to benefit everybody. So the main thing that people need to do is get educated on the issues. I need to mention the website. So our website is ccanc.org. And so if people will go there, you can see we've got background information we've got a summary document on the complaint, just the introductory section of it that gives you the background on it. You can find the full complaint, the whole 113-page document there. If you read that, you can't help but be educated on these issues. And you can't help but walk away from it and go, damn, are we really letting this happen? I mean, is this really going on? So you need to get educated on it. And you'll also notice when you look at the complaint, what we tried to do as we got prepared to file this lawsuit, CCA is the lead plaintiff on this, and we're always going to be controlling on this as far as making sure that the attorneys stay on track and get paid. But we went out and we recruited a large number of individual co-plaintiffs in our coalition. So you'll see there's 86 people right now that are individual, what I call just, Jane and Joe fishermen, just the average citizens of North Carolina that own the resource. Because that's what this is all about. This is filed on behalf of the people of North Carolina that own the resource. So they're people from 29 different counties. It's men and women, minorities, folks that live on the coast and folks that live in the mountains. So it's representative of the state as a whole. We want more people to join on. What we did to start with is we kind of did that kind of behind the scenes recruitment because we didn't want word of what we were getting ready to file to get out until we actually filed it. But there's an opportunity for people, if they're interested, just to contact me and let me know. We want to get, by the time we go to court with this, I'd love to have 1,000 people on there because it's the people that own the resource. So you can get educated, become a co-plaintiff, and you can donate to the cause. I mean, obviously this has taken a lot of money. Litigation's not cheap, but we did have a really good opportunity to raise some money early on. We had some good supporters that stepped up, and we're in good shape there. But it's going to be a battle, and we're going to need to keep the finances coming in. So that's basically the three things you'll see on the website. Yeah. There was one other thing that just went out of my head. Sorry about that.
You're good. If it comes back, let us know. I think that's
All right.
really cool that we can, be plaintiffs ourselves, and that, if you're listening to this and you're one of the many people that has reached out to me complaining about this, take the time to read the 113-page document and really understand the issues. I mean, I think that is huge, and I think that supporting the cause and becoming a plaintiff and being well educated and being articulate. I might not be the best, but I can try. It is a great way to help. I mean, this is a time that we can really push and band together and make a difference. So that's cool. What do you think?
No, I graduated from UNCW with a marine bio degree and minor in chemistry, and I worked for the state here out of the Wilmington office for about a year and a half, right out of school, and interned with them. One thing that always struck me when I walked through the door was there was a poster, and this was an older poster, and it said that our fishery was managed for monetary gains and then for the people, and it always, for me, seeing the monetary part of it being kind of in the first part of it, or being the first thing that was listed, just always struck me as very odd. And I'm glad to see that we're finally getting to take that step and make that change now.
Yeah.
To, really be able to do it for the people.
Definitely.
For the resource. So.
Yeah. So you said the document is there on the website, correct?
Yeah. That's
okay,
right.
And we can find that, and then reaching out to you. How would people do that if they decided, hey, I do want to become a plaintiff?
Well, the easiest thing to remember is my email address. Again, is pretty simple. It's just david@ccanc.org. So if you want to email me, give me your contact information, and we'll be glad to send you back. We've got some summary documents and some kind of an outline of what the expectations are. It's kind of you mentioned the economic part of it. One of the things that, and I know Jud and I talked about this a long time ago. When we first started putting all this together, the question was, well, do we get the industry behind this, or, do we get guides and tackle shop owners and all those to sign on? And really, we're trying to take all that monetary side of it out of this. If somebody wants to argue with me about the value of the recreational industry, I'm happy to do that, because we're going to win that argument, easily. But this is not about economics. This is about saving a resource that's in trouble.
Amen.
And so
that's the point.
We took all the for-profit people out of this. Again, everybody that's signed on the lawsuit right now, that's why it's only CCA. This is not a bunch of special interest groups, not a bunch of environmental groups. It's a bunch of individuals that own this resource. And again, a lot of this stuff's in trouble. And if we don't do something now, when we get to the point where our fisheries managers are telling us that we got to close down a fishery to save it, we got to have a moratorium. That's a failure in management.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just never should have gotten there. It never should have gotten there. The warning signs were there. Michael, like I said, if you were a marine biologist,
Oh yeah.
the science isn't exact, but it's pretty telling, and you can
Definitely.
tell, when we're getting to the point, southern flounders, that great example again, where, we're at the point now where we've got, age truncated species that, we don't have any older flounder anymore.
Nope.
We don't have any large, flounder anymore. Same thing on striped bass. I was talking to another guide earlier today that fishes, he probably catches more striped bass than any other fisherman in North Carolina. And he said, we don't see any big fish anymore.
No.
Where are all the big fish? So we got to build this fishery back up, or it's, and that's, there's some short-term pain to do that, but it'll be for the long term.
Yeah. That's the thing, is we got to look at all this long term. It's not about, I want to be able to go catch, my limit of these fish and put them in my cooler next year. There's sacrifice that's going to have to be made from every side.
Definitely.
And to sit back and to act like there's not an issue anymore is just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. So, well, cool. I can't think. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over that had to do with that part of this podcast? I know we're going to talk a little bit about a tournament that's coming up, but anything else as far as the lawsuit goes, or the issues that we're dealing with here in North Carolina?
Yeah, the only other thing I should mention is if you go to the website, I think the third thing that you can do is actually join CCA.
Gotcha.
So, that whole thing about getting involved, and being a part of something. It's easy to stand on the sidelines and be an armchair quarterback, but at some point, if you really care about what's going on, you need to get in the game. And again, that's by being educated, joining CCA, being a part of what's going on, and being a meaningful voice for the resource.
Definitely. Well, tell us about. I know we talked about this pre-recording a little bit, but the tournament that y'all are coming up with here in December for speckled trout.
Yeah, so we had a really good tournament this summer, based out of Wilmington. Our Cape Fear chapter kind of hosted it, and so we had a really good time with iAngler doing a completely catch and release tournament. Everything's by photographs and measuring, and so we wanted to do something again this towards the end of the year, and so we put together an idea for a trout tournament because we made a decision not to have trout included in the summertime tournament because kind of where it was based. And anyway, so we want to do something. Trout fishing was great this time of year last year. We're hoping it'll get better. We were talking about everybody's kind of seeing some struggles in a lot of areas right now because it just won't cool off. We need to get some cooler temperatures. So we're going to wait until December, and we're going to kind of do this in conjunction with our Release Over 20 commitment.
Awesome.
We love that, being a part of the Release Over 20 campaign. I hope everybody knows about it. I don't know if we need to repeat that or not, but we want to continue to promote releasing large fish. I've seen everybody. It seems like every tackle shop around is doing some sort of trout tournament right now, and unfortunately, what I'm seeing a lot of are kill tournaments where you got to bring in the big fish and weigh it. So we're going to lose a lot of big fish, to these tournaments.
Right. And
so kind of our concept goes back to the whole conservation of, let them spawn. We got to let these big fish go and spawn and produce some more trout for us. So we're going to do a complete catch and release tournament with the iAngler app. It was pretty easy to use. And we're going to start in December 11th, and run it through the first of the year, run it through January 3rd. We're going to base it out of New Bern this time. We've got a Neuse River chapter, and Donald Willis is one of our big supporters. He's got a shop there called Custom Marine Fabrication, big tackle shop dealer in that area. So we'll probably do a captain's party to kick it off, depending on, we had a good time down in Wilmington, even though the COVID restrictions, we had everybody outside, and I wasn't sure how many people would come out, but I will say this, that there wasn't any beer left at the end of the captain's party. So I think people are just, people are fed up with staying in the house, and they want to get out, and we hope the tournament will give them a chance to get out and be a part of it. And we want it to be kind of a longer term where you're not just, hitting one day and, one person gets lucky with a big fish. So we're spread it out over the month of December, starting, like I said, December 11th through January 3rd. There'll be, what we're looking at, aggregate scoring. I guess the top winner will be a total of three longest catches. So everything's measured instead of weighs. You're measured on a measuring tape. So your aggregate of your three largest trout, and you can report every time you catch fish, and iAngler will keep up with it. So if you get a bigger fish, you don't have to worry about culling your entries. It'll all add up.
It'll bump them for you. Gotcha.
Yeah. It's only $35 to join. It's open to CCA members and non-members. There'll be an opportunity to sign up and become a member if you'd like to. That'll be an added feature, but we want it to be open to everybody. We've got some commitments from some sponsors. You're going to get, as part of the $35 sign up, you get 3 packs of iStrike Texas eye jigs.
Nice.
You're going to get a pack of Slam Shadies, the soft plastic from our friends at Salt Strong. 10% Daiwa card, 10% off Daiwa card that'll be accepted at most tackle shops. And of course, you'll get a Release Over 20 sticker to remind you of that.
Yeah.
Regulator Marine is our biggest sponsor, our big cash sponsor that's helping us out with this. But again, We got Daiwa, Salt Strong, Eastern Currents on board, I Strike, and Release Over 20. So it'll all be prizes again, but we'll have over $4,000 worth of prizes. We'll have some good stuff there, and guarantee that the first place guy is going to take home at least $1,000 worth of. It's $750. Top retail value on first place is $750, $500, and $250. So we'll pay the top 3 finishers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Yeah, that's exciting. So, do you have to fish that New Bern area or up along the Pamlico, or can you fish anywhere in North Carolina?
Yeah, anywhere in North Carolina.
Okay.
Anywhere in North Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
And the main thing about the captain's party is giving people a central location to pick up wristbands, but we'll do the same thing like we did last time. So we'll have them at, different locations around the state, like Texas Tackle was one of the people giving them out last year, and so there'll be other places where you just
awesome.
got to get your wristband.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool deal. I'm excited about that one. I have to come up to that captain's party because that sounds like it'll be a fun time. Maybe crash at Matthew's house or something.
There you go.
But yeah, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And I think maybe as we progress in this, if new stuff comes to light, and we need to just it's a good platform to share what's going on with a decent amount of people that listen here in North Carolina and other states. I think it's important that other states are hearing what's going on here, and we can just kind of raise awareness across the board, because we do have quite a few listeners in South Carolina and Texas and Georgia and Florida, and so it's it wouldn't hurt for somebody in Texas or Florida to join North Carolina CCA, because they have this great fishery and they care about that being something that we can have up and down the coast. So if you're listening from outside of state, think about that, and I think that'd be a cool option. You got anything else, Mike?
No, I think I'm good. Right
on. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, David. Is there anything else you want to share before we end this podcast?
No, I'm good. I appreciate the opportunity, and happy to come back anytime and give you guys an update.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe we can talk about fishing sometime too.
We need to. We'll do like a little 5-minute fishing to end it all. So.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for checking out this episode of Eastern Current. We will be back to tackle tips and fishing and that kind of stuff next week. But thank y'all again, and we'll see you in the next episode. Later.